yeah, a little bit about how masks and puppets work. Right, we've got one of our finished masks here. He was Bob Cratchit. You notice he's a half mask. Masks they tend to be very big. They have a lot of energy to them, and the thing that interests me is there's a lot of psychology to a mask. So, for instance, in this character, Bob Cratchit is an eternal optimist. But the way that this mask works is actually you can see the sort of the misery of his life. But if he's constantly going, oh yeah, okay, yeah, it's known as sort of playing against the mask. And it makes him a richer kind of character. But then when he talks about the death of Tiny Tim, it really is quite heartbreaking. And that in combination with the puppet worked rather well. So I love the psychology of the mask when it's and the way that it will take an audience into a world which is I suppose the closest equivalent is a fairy tale or a folk tale. In those stories we tend to accept anything. We accept the normal life alongside a supernatural world, and anything can happen, and it's a world that happens on its terms rather than your terms. And Mask does exactly the same, because as soon as you put that on a face, the audience will accept it. And it's a huge lie, a massive lie at the beginning of the show. But it's very beguiling at the same time. And you can go into a world where anything, so supernatural things can happen, fairies can appear, devils can appear, and you instantly love it because you've swallowed this huge lie at the beginning of the show. Anything else seems quite small afterwards. It's a little bit like the old Frankenstein film. It's a little bit like the Boris Karloff Frankenstein, where you can see the makeup around the edge of the face and you can see the sets wobbling from time to time, and it's in black and white. But as soon as you've taken that in and you've decided to believe in that world, you've entered that world on its terms. And then anything can happen. And it's a much more scary film, I think, than the more modern versions of it, which tend to bring the world to you on your terms, and they have a lot more difficulty in convincing you that actually this monster would exist. But yes, that's what interests me about masks. When you add to that puppets, you can you begin to play around and push that idea of the audience's idea of anything happening even further, because you're beginning to play around with scale as well. And when we first started to do that, we found that there's a very different energy between masks and puppets. So I have, if we have down here, we play with our little devil puppet. He's quite, you can see, he'll be painted, etc., and he'll be cast, etc. But he's sort of quite a little refined little thing. So if you imagine an audience, you'd have to be able to, you'd have to sort of lean forward for a puppet and see his sort of little movements. We've got a little hand, which I'm sort of carving for him here. But it's very intimate, whereas masks tend to be quite. You tend to lean back for a mask because they will really come at you. I've got a different style of mask down here. That's a Capitano from a Commedia dell'arte set, who is a braggart and is constantly lying about all his achievements, but he's he's very, very big, and he'll push you back and he will talk to you, and it's a little bit like going to a Barry Humphries show where you just don't sit in the front row because you know that he's going to pick on you. So we found, when you've got these little intimate puppets and you've got these big masks, that we needed something to begin to knit up the two, and that's where having live music at the side really worked for us. In a way that having recorded music wouldn't work at all, because not only did we have a musician who could sort of alter his performance as masks sort of took off on different flights of fancy, but he also provided, he was like a folio artist. So you would have sounds underscoring as well. And what we've sort of hit upon as a style is a combination of two different mask traditions. One of which is the Commedia dell'arte, which is Italian and very big. If you think of Italian language, it's all hey, hey, bella, ciao, hey. It's very, very big. And then there's the Japanese tradition of mask, which is less gesticulatory and more atmosphere and mood and myth. Whereas Commedia dell'arte is all to do with sort of, I suppose it's the Italian theatre version of a carry-on film in a way, and is all to do with, it's a kind of low humour, fairly scatological, etc. from time to time. But you can mix the two together once you start having music in there. and the music will guide you through. And the fact that you've got all these masks which are working in the same way, they tend to unify everything together.